This week we've got the pleasure of having a session on data quality services, and I'm looking forward to that. Our speaker is Steve Simon. So what's happening in the PASS world? Well, we've got the biggest SQL Server event in the world happening, and I can't wait to attend. If you're still interested in attending and you haven't got your ticket yet, then please do get in touch and we'll see if we can sort you out with a discount. We've got a code down the bottom there. Now, I think the PASS boutique is still open if you're interested in ordering something like a t-shirt or a mug. The reason we're doing this is in response to requests from the community who want to buy things to take home with them. So some virtual chapter meetings. You can see we've had quite a few sessions. So we've got Global Spanish on the 29th of October, and well done to the Global Spanish team because they are just producing absolutely tons of virtual chapter sessions. So if you speak Spanish or you know someone who does, or you're just wanting to learn technical Spanish, it's a great way to do that. And I'd like also to say hello to the Global Italian virtual chapter who's starting to have sessions as well. So we really are starting to become a global organisation. You can probably see there we've got Global Russian and we've got Global Hebrew, Global Spanish. It's an exciting time, I think. So upcoming SQL Saturdays, again we're a very global organisation. So in North America we've got Minnesota, Tampa and Salt Lake City, and we also have international events as well. So we have Sydney, Australia on the 25th of October, Barcelona on the same day. I'm presenting at SQL Saturday Barcelona and I cannot wait. And the 25th of October we have ICA, so the same 3 on the same day, in fact 4 on the same day, because we also have one in Rio as well. So it's just amazing. We'll have SQL Saturdays in both hemispheres, which is just awesome, I think. So if you're interested in volunteering with PASS, you can log into the PASS website and indicate you're interested in volunteering. And I do have to say a big thank you to all of our volunteers. PASS would not exist without our passionate, dedicated and hard-working volunteers from around the globe. And that's absolutely true. And that includes our speakers, and all the volunteers, everyone who runs the virtual chapters and the physical chapters as well. And they're all just wonderful, amazing people. So PASS Volunteer Awards. If you know somebody who's done a remarkable piece of volunteering commitment, why not nominate them for the Outstanding Volunteer Award? So last month we had 2 virtual chapter leaders win. So we had Paris Doche and we had Dan English. They won the Outstanding Volunteer Award jointly. So if you know somebody and you just want to give them a token of thanks, then why not nominate them? The email address is volunteerrecognition@sqlpass.org, and it doesn't take long to do that. So to stay involved, if you've arrived through the GoToWebinar link and perhaps don't know how to join up with PASS, there's different ways you can interact with us. SQLpass.org is our website, and with that I will hand over to our speaker today. And our speaker is Steve Simon. I'll let Stephen introduce himself, and I will say a big thank you to Steve for his session today. I'm personally looking forward to it. It's my own belief that if you don't have data quality, you don't have anything, and I think that's why this topic in particular is so crucial. So with that, I will hand over to Steve, and I look forward to the session. Over to you, Steve.
Okay, can you see my screen, Jen?
Yes, I can see, no problems.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, I can hear it. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, you're good to go. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Hi, all. Just to recap, thanks, Jen, for the introduction. My name is Steve Simon, and I work for Atrion Networking Corporation in Providence in Rhode Island, which is on the northeast side of North America. Here it's 8 o'clock in the morning on what I like to call a November morning that you get in Europe, overcast and rainy and pretty miserable. As Jen mentioned, I'm a SQL Server MVP, and I have presented numerous papers at PASS summits over the years since the turn of the millennium, and I did some work at the Amsterdam Rally last year and in Copenhagen the year before. Should anybody want my links or contact me with regards to the presentation, and I shall have all the code up on my website, so please don't take notes. The presentation and the code will be up on my website. You can either get the email, either my email address, you can get stevesimon@sqlpass.org, or go to my website, which is INFOGOLD, Infogold USA, one word, .com, and you'll be able to pick it up or get hold of me, and I'll be happy to send the link to you. And my blog is at SQLServerCentral.com, and it's blogged under Simon Says. Anyhow, enough of that. Okay, here's a QR code to my website. So if you've got a telephone and you want to capture it, you're more than welcome to. All right. Done. A while back, and I want to say it was about 1.5 years ago, I was working for a web grocery company, you know, online orders and stuff like that. I was in the northern part of the United States, right along the Canadian border. And the one thing that I noticed was that we did a lot of collection of data of manufacturers of products such as Kellogg's Corn Flakes or coffee or whatever it may be. And we used to get a lot of the sales from the various different stores. We had a reciprocation with the other chains of stores, like, for instance, Aldi in Germany or, you know, Woolworths in Britain, etc. And we would pick up the sales that they had and sort of look for trends in the data mining industry. And we would look for trends of where's things sold in at what particular times of the year, which was really up my alley, because I've been doing business intelligence for many, many years. However, the one thing that got me was that a lot of our stuff, a lot of the raw data was hand-entered. And this is a problem that we knew about. We always put our tuck underneath the covers. You know, we talk about bad data. All right. Well, you would not believe how many different ways there are to spell the word Kellogg's, which is one of the big cereal companies here and many places over the world. I would get Kellogg's with 2 G's and an apostrophe S, 2 G's with an S, 1 G with an apostrophe S. I think you can see what the issue is. Now, the reason that this is very important to us is that if you can imagine for a second that you're working with an OLAP cube in a multidimensional world, when you try and aggregate things up from the store level to the regional level, to the province level, to the northeast quarter of the country level, to the national level, if you aggregate these things up within your cube, you could land up with potentially 15 different ways of Kellogg's being spelled up at the top level, which really does not give you what you're looking for. Descriptions were, in many cases, were very unreliable, and I'll give you a heads up on this one that I will be going through the slides going forward very, very rapidly, and because of the time, and 80% of this presentation is a hands-on. If you want to read the slides, they'll be available for you, but I think, you know, talk is cheap, money buys the whiskey. All right? These descriptions were unreliable because you couldn't put them basically into a query predicate, because what spelling do you use? And you know, likes are very, very heavy on I/O. With SQL Server 2008, we had data profiling, and for many of you that have worked with it, it was great. It was a great advance. It told you what was wrong. But the problem was that it never told you or recommended to you what you should be doing to try and correct the situation. Or, for that matter, it wouldn't be able to correct the situation for you, which you're going to see data quality services can. Right. In a particular case, we used to get weekly modifications to the core data. All right, and this would show up for the first time. So I would go in there and I would fix the data. And the next week I'd have to do the same thing. So after having done this for very many weeks, maybe 14, 15 weeks, I figured out that we had to go and do something a little bit better than that. And that is when I got involved with SQL Server 2012 and the data quality services, because prior to this, you didn't have the quality service. All right? It seemed to me that the OLAP solution seemed to be the least easy to fix, so therefore you spent time processing cubes all over the place. And you know, one of the cubes that I was putting together had 1 million records, not a million, but 1 milliard, 1,000 million records. And that used to take on between 45 and 50 minutes to go and process, and you didn't really want to do this all the time. All right? Now, data quality services came into the scene in 2012. Basically what it is, a set of tools to allow your data stewards to improve the quality of your data. And they call it, Microsoft calls it a domain expert, and I love the term data steward. It's something that came out from Microsoft, and I think it's really a good word. One thing, if you know, any of you know me out there in the audience, I've always been a very strong advocate for the business analysts to take over the ownership of their data. Now why? Just very quickly, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I want to tell you why. Because that way you can ensure that they don't give you junk as far as the data goes. Because human nature says if I have to maintain the data, I'm going to make sure it's as clean as possible to make my job easier. All right? Data quality services produces a result set of suggested. And the emphasis, I probably should have bolded this, that it's suggested improvements, because when data quality services goes through your data, it doesn't actually fix the data. It creates a duplicate copy of the table for you to have a look at and say to your, it's telling you, look, this is what I think it is. And we'll see this in the actual practical. It thinks this is what it is. Am I correct? That's the system saying, am I correct? But one thing you have to know, and this is very important, is that the data quality services learns as it goes. It's almost like in the old days, and I've got gray hair, if any of you have seen me, the old days of the world of Lisp. Now, as I said, it doesn't change the original data set, okay? And you can, by having a duplicate table, which is also important, okay? And the table's, just kept for as long as you need it for. It gives the subject matter expert, in other words, your data steward, a certain amount of place to put his own input in, okay? At the beginning, when you get working with data quality services, you have to manually define it and create matches and clean the data up, and which is what we're going to do from a very, very high level when we get into the practical in a couple of minutes. Okay. The computer then cleanses your data. How? By looking at patterns and looking at the experience, the actual pseudo-learning, and I say learning within quotes, that it is done from what you have told it to do. Right? And then programmatically afterwards, it will still send you out a recommendation if it needs it, and you'll see exactly how it does it in a couple of minutes' time. It can be integrated with third-party. For example, if you need for some reason to have, and I'll point this out in the practical, if you need to have third-party data, for instance, checking addresses, there are companies that have lists of addresses from various different communities all around the world. So that's where you could get addresses. You can say, okay, Mr. Data Quality Services, here's your reference data. We'll be talking about a master piece of data in a couple of minutes' time. Right? But go against, you will be my master data, my book of references, the financial book of references for this thing. Check the data against this, and that's where third-party data comes in. It can integrate well with processing, and we're going to have a look at this in SSIS in a couple of minutes. I'm right towards the end, because I think that this is very important. I mean, it's okay to go and play with the stuff, but you have to make it work in a production environment and do it at night when the processing window opens, etc., and be able to sleep soundly, which I found that I have been able to do. We talk about the basic steps. We all create our project, and we then refine it and use the knowledge base to create the extract module, which will be used in SSIS to pull our data. And you'll see this. Don't worry about it. We will see this in practicality, and it'll become clear as glass. We're going to do a performance. We're going to have a look at some data quality evaluations, see what the system thinks is right, see what the system thinks is wrong. Okay? And we're going to generate some output. All right? Now, there's a couple of parts involved in this. I'm going to whip through this very quickly, because what I want to do is I want to spend all my time on the practical. Server and a compliant component. The main activity screen. Now, quick one I got to throw in here, because I spoke to Microsoft in Denmark. There is no GUI at the present moment. Why? It's easy. According to Microsoft, if they have people that really want to use it, they'll produce the GUI. It's sort of a chicken and egg story, go figure. I don't know why. But this is the answer that I got. The official answer that I got from Microsoft is that they'll do it if people will use it. So my own thought is, how will people use it if they haven't got a proper GUI? But you have a link to it, etc. We will be going through the knowledge, developing a knowledge base, and then we'll be going through and creating a data quality project. And that data quality project, as they say in where I come from, talk is cheap, but the money will buy the whiskey. And that's where we'll see how it actually works. I'm going to skip over the slide. It really is a summary of what sort of data and things that it can resolve. It, you know, is things that you have to think of. Is all the data there? Is it in the correct format, etc.? How accurate are the things? And what is the validity of the data? And that's something we don't normally test. I stole this thing from Zilli, from Microsoft. It gives you an overall picture. It's in the slides in the presentation. You can download it. It just gives you an idea of how the various different parts fit with each other. You can see here's the DQ engine, okay, and the profiling, etc. And there's active projects, etc. And we're going to be looking at the knowledge base and interacting with it. So have a look at this if you do download it. Right? What do you have to have? You have Business Intelligence Edition or the Enterprise Edition. But for those of you who are playing around with it, you can get Developers Edition. That's the princely sum of $40 US or a bit more, you know, overseas. But it's phenomenal. You can play with it and see how things work. Okay. We install the server portion from the start thing underneath SSMS, and you can have an installer. What happens is it'll then install the client, but you have to make sure that when you're installing your instance, you said that you wanted to do it, because they will then install the installer. After installation, you'll notice in there that you've got a new security folder, or in the security folder you'll find that you've got new rights. In other words, you've got a DQS administrator, you've got a DQS cube, knowledge base editor, etc., and operator. So there's a whole pile of new roles that you can assign at the runtime. Okay. This is the GUI. No API at the present moment. I have to go and figure that one out. All right. When editing, your knowledge base is locked. I know you guys don't know what a knowledge base is. It'll all fit in together. It's probably better you have a look at the slides afterwards. It's a sort of thing that can basically be split up and incorporated together. But the thing is this, this is the point I want to make, because it's very important. Your knowledge base serves as a seed. It's very much like a .NET object or a Java object. You can instantiate one copy, so once it's done, it can be inherited by future knowledge bases. So you can grow your knowledge base based upon a previously generated knowledge base, which I think is very, very cool. Each person can create his own of the knowledge base, etc., and then you can unite. The knowledge base pieces can be important, etc. Meanwhile, back at the ranch. Okay, this is what I want to talk about, and then I'm going to get into the practical. This is the kind of crap, pardon the speech, but it's early here, and my manners, and my wife is out the house. You can see the various different manufacturers over there, and if you can see on the screen, you can see that there's a myriad ways of spelling Kellogg's. This is gospel. This is data that I picked up when I was working there. The only thing that I've changed is the prices, which you will not see, or any of the other stuff. This, basically speaking, gives you an idea of what we were dealing with on a weekly basis. All right? What do you do, in heaven's name, what do you do with something like that comes in? This is the type of stuff that we really want to fix out, and this is really a major problem. Okay, the demo. Okay. I whip up data quality services. I've got this up right now because I did a test with Jen before starting. You go down here and you go into data quality services and you call up the data quality services client. When you come up, what you will do is you will be given the option to create a new knowledge base. And that's all I've done. So I'm not cheating. This is exactly where I got. When I open up the first screen, I get a blank thing, and I typed in DWBI. This is the name of our model. And we could put a description in here. All you've missed, and I'll show it to you afterwards if you want, just to get in, this is, as I said, just a test with Jen to see that you could see the whole screen, because I ran into a bad situation in a presentation with audio-visual stuff last week on Saturday. I'm going to put in here our demo of Now, a couple of seconds ago, I mentioned inheritance. Okay. Well, here we haven't got inheritance because there's nothing that I'm picking up, but you can see that you have the option to inherit from an existing knowledge base. So the next time I do this presentation for you, I will be using the one that we're creating today. So you can see you can build upon it. It's like building with Legos. Once you put the one down, you can put another one on top of it, etc., which I think is really, really cool. The first activity that we're going to do is we're going to do domain management. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Next. And you can see I've arrived at a very blank screen. We first of all have to create a domain. What is a domain? It is very simply, and I'll repeat it, very simply a mirror type version of the table that we are going to consider or we're going to look at within SQL Server. So in other words, in my case, what I'm doing is I'm looking at manufacturer. You, in actual practicality, would be looking at manufacturer, looking at the product is spelled correctly, looking at the bank is spelled correctly, but you can't do that in an hour presentation. So what I'm trying to do is to get the idea across to you. So I'm going to create a domain. And the thing comes up, the create domain pop-up screen comes up. Let's call this manufacturer. And you can put in a manufacturer as a description. Now, its data type is going to be string. Options of what to do. You can make it a date, a decimal, whatever you want to validate. This screen says, what do you want to have me, Data Quality Services, validate every single day? 365 days a year, forever and ever, amen. All right? This is what we're going to do, and you don't do anything further than this, and just click OK. Notice that a new tab has come up. In this case, we have 5 tabs. One is called Domain Properties, where we are right now. One is called Reference Data, and that reference data falls in. You remember I mentioned the third parties with the addresses, etc. That's where you go to the cloud and go and buy services of some other company to act as your master file. Just hang on that idea, the master file, within a couple of seconds, because it's a term that I like to use, because master means the correct data at the beginning of the show, etc. Okay? So we're not going to talk about this because of the fact that I haven't got a link through to the cloud, and I'm not particularly interested in a whole pile of names at this particular stage in the game. The 3 remaining tabs, domain rules, domain values, and term-based relationships, we're going to talk about in a couple of seconds' time, maybe a minute or so. The first important thing to do is to be able to get the data into the system so that it can chomp up a list of things that we think are absolutely the correct values, names of our manufacturers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this. Domain values. Now, here's the kicker. Here's the kicker, because this one got me. You want to add new data, but guess what? The subject is SQL Server. Okay? The kicker is that you can only import this master data via Excel. Go figure. There you go. That's all the options that you have to get the data in. And to me, this is ludicrous. Have I raised it with Microsoft? Yes. Has everybody else raised it with Microsoft? The answer is also yes. So there, that said, I'm going to browse and get my spreadsheet. Now here's my manufacturer sheet, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it. It says to me that's where the thing is located. Is the first row a header? And the answer is yes. Okay, and now the worksheet is going to be sheet number 1. So I'm going to say okay. And it says that 163 values were imported. And there are the values. Okay? Now, going down, the list, I come to my pet subject. These are all the Kellogg's. Now, I've done this so many times that it's memorized it already. Using the same Kellogg's example, you'll notice that it thinks that every time it sees this, it's going to correct it to Kellogg's USA Inc. All right? Now, we have a myriad of ways of spelling Kellogg's. You can see that exactly here. We're going to decide to correct it to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cursor, and I'm going to put the cursor on here, and I'm going to then put down the control key. I've got left control key down, and I'm going to put up here to highlight it, and this, and that, and that, and that. And I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say set synonym. All right? It did everything to this one, but it didn't do it to that one because it's a leading value. That's not for this form. But you can see that it changed that, and I'm going to make that. No, that one is okay. There's a couple more down here. I'm going to say take that, and I'm going to make everything down to here. I'm going to make that a synonym as well. Once again, it can't be linked, but you can see that everything else was made, or we'll make it Kellogg's USA. Everything will go wrong in A. I can change it. Give me a second here. It's wrong. And I'm going to make it have a manual thing in there. Kellogg's. In my case, Kellogg's USA. Inc. If it's wrong, and it came out wrong like it did here, you have the option of the drop down, and you can go manually do an enter. Okay. Copy. Okay. Correct. Yeah, I think you get the right idea. There we go. Okay. Created everything the way I want it to be, and I made this X because Mr. Computer, you're wrong. This is what it should be. Mr. Computer, you're wrong. This is what it should be. Mr. Computer, you're wrong. This is what it should be. And I'm all set. So I'm going to say, naturally in the actual activity, what we would do is go through this thing over the hours and basically speaking, get it cleaned out. But I just want to show you that, and I think that that's okay. So I'm going to click Finish. And it's going to say, you finished the domain management. Are you happy with it? Do you want to publish it? And we're going to say yes. It was successfully published. And you can see back here, we've now got a new knowledge base. All right, clicking on this particular arrow over here, we've done the domain management already. What we need to do is have a look at the data and see what it looks like before we go any further. So I'm going to click Knowledge Discovery. Now, at this point, this is the kicker. At this point, you can actually use a SQL Server database to go and have a look at it. Now, in the step before, you saw that when I brought in my master file and I was prepared to, it's supposed to be the proper values there. But I brought it in deliberately as dirty data to show you that you didn't have to create the correct data within a spreadsheet. You could actually use the tool to create your master list by changing all those flipping varieties of Kellogg's into one particular variety, one particular spelling. So that is a way that you can use it. In this particular case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the PASS Nordic Rally database that I created a couple of years back as my source. And the list of manufacturers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the manufacturer table. Now, hang on a bit. The important point to realize at this point is that the source column over here is the domain that we just fixed, the Kellogg's table. Let's call it the Kellogg table just for the sake of argument. Inside that, it's got the manufacturer, stop, Control Z. What I'm going to do is this is the source column which is in the table. And here is the manufacturer. That's an invar field, okay? Now in here, in the Nordic Rally, sorry, I apologize to you for I have a bad day. I'm using, in the small data backup table. Okay, here's a list of all the fields that come in that small data small data backup table. Notice we have a manufacturer here. This is the source column. This is the data that we're going to take in. It's bad. We know it. We want to pit it against our domain, which we created, which contains the manufacturer field. Okay? So it's a one-to-one relationship between the table with the raw data and what we just did in the previous step, which is the manufacturer. I'm going to click Next. And I'm going to start processing the data. This is the first process that we look at. Okay? Now, having a look at that, it gives you phenomenal statistics. Guess what? It found in the new data 215 new values. So what is this telling us? What has this got to do with the price of rice in China? Well, first thing, in the first list that we created, we have an issue. We have an issue that there are 215 values which we did not have, which means we did not do a good job in making our master list. But never fear. This will come back and will be mounted on a nightly basis. All the new stuff that goes in that we've approved will go in, and we replenish our spreadsheet during the night and get the process running again, almost like a cycle. But that's not for the scope. There were 199 unique values that it's found. Excuse me. And there were a couple of new unique values that it found. So this is quite cool. It's done a lot of discovery. Let's step the next step. Okay. What it's doing right now is based upon what you gave it, and the table that I just showed you that's got tons more records. Excuse me. You'll find that it's found over here that this one came in from the new one, but it's not according to standard. It is suggesting to you that it wants to correct it to this particular value. Right there, and then the intelligence is starting to show up. Based on this, it has picked out that your data is crap. It's picked up that your data needs to be fixed over here. This is absolutely cool, right? Now, this said, all right, what we do is we can either correct it or whatever we want to do. We can have a look at this and see if, carry on with, processing it, clean it up, tell it this is an error. It wants to make, if you do not want it and you insist that this particular thing is right, okay, then you can say to the thing, you can click over here and you can click the check mark to tell you that it's a correct value, etc. Okay, it's perfect. There's no issue. And it will handle it when it does the processing. It'll handle it as if it's a new value. So you have the flexibility. You have the ability to be able to stop things at this particular point in saying that to Mr. DQS, Mr. DQS, I know you think it's this, but this is in fact correct. Now, the thing that I get asked all the time, and I think that this is the most important point I'm going to make. Am I going to have to do this every single day? Because if I have to do this every single day, there's no point in running through a piece of software that I can manually fix better by looking at it and eyeballing it. The answer is no. Because if you look at it, it's a very parabola type of curve. It's a parabolic type of curve. In other words, it's a curved line. And the more you have to fix things, decreases with the times that you have to fix things, decreases with time as you advance. And this is one thing that I found. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, pretend that everything is correct right now for the sake of argument, and I'm going to click Finish, and I'm going to publish these changes as well. So I did have the option to fix things right over there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a matching policy to see exactly how well the stuff was matched. In other words, how many instances were matched, how many do you find as matches, and how many anomalies do I have, for want of a better word. So once again, I'm going to go into that PASS Nordic Rally, right? And I'm going to go back to the manufacturer table, small data, and I'm going to go in here, and what I'm going to do is match the field manufacturer against the manufacturer domain and click Next. Now, a rule. What are we trying to do when we create a rule? Why a rule? What is that thing? You just sprung that on me on the way out. What is it? Okay. A rule tells DQS what reliability do we want? What matching percentage that you think is match? Is it match 80%? Is it match 90%? Whatever it may be. What is the accuracy of mapping that you want to be able to figure out that Kellogg's with 2 G's is the same as Kellogg's with 2 G's and an S attached to it, etc., when you go to fix the stuff, because it has to know how accurate has that got to be. And this is very important. You have to understand that, because if you're working with 2 or 3 different fields, like a manufacturer, a price, and a brand, certain things may be more important, like cornflakes, which is a brand of a product of cereals, okay, which is done by various different manufacturers. So it may be that you value material, you may value the product name being more accurate. In other words, if people are looking for cornflakes, they could be Post cornflakes or some other brands named the cornflakes. It depends upon what accuracy you're looking at. But whatever you do, it has to total 100%. So I'm going to create a rule, and I'm going to call the rule manufacturer must be correct. Okay. Now, in order to have a rule matching rule, okay, I'm going to move this because I need to get in here. Okay. I'm going to add a domain element, and it's going to be manufacturer. Now, I want this to be 80%. Okay. And I have nothing else other than the 80%. And I click. Oh, I got a problem. It says the domain weight must be 100 and I've only got 80. Well, normally if it was product or something else, what I would do is I would click, click another domain element, and I would put in product and make that 20%. So in this case, what I have to do is I have to make this 100%, and the system now loves me because everything is accurate. Okay? Now this said, what I'm going to now do is I'm going to start processing to find out of the master records and of the new data coming in, how many were matched and how many weren't. Now you're going to say to me, why the heck are you doing this? What is the purpose? You're talking about matching. Why do you need to do this? Because you want to see if your model is correct before you start actually processing it, because otherwise you have to reinvent the wheel. You want to get as near as, pardon the expression, near as damn it that you've got the correct algorithm working before you start actually using it to process your data, because otherwise you get lousy data in, gives you lousy data out. So let's see how we're doing. I'm going to click Start. And it's processing the data. Okay, I'm fixed. Wonderful. You have an option right now to filter by matched or unmatched. So we see matched over here, okay? And we got a whole lot of data that it's actually manufactured. Now, wait a minute, hang on just a second. Okay, this is manufactured, etc. Okay, they all look the same. Ah, no, they've got a UPC here. And the UPC has got a different value to each one of these things. Okay, I understand why. There's no duplicates or anything. I'm always worried about that. All right, let's have a look at the unmatched records. Based upon the algorithm that we just did, based upon that algorithm, okay, and working on it, it found that these were unmatched. Now, this is data that we have in the system, okay, that is not in the master file or did not match 100%. So in real life, I would really want to go back and have a look at this particular data and go and see what I can do to make that all the unmatched go away. Now, as I say in many of my presentations, I could have used AdventureWorks, but I believe that AdventureWorks is not a real-world situation. And I don't want to look at AdventureWorks. I want to look at real-world data. Okay, so we'll move on with what we've got. And this is deliberately. I did make it this way deliberately because otherwise how can I show you what does not match? All right. Now what I want to do is I want to see exactly how many records there are, execute on the previous data, and basically speaking to see how we stand versus everything else. Sorry, I don't want to do that. Okay, right. All right, now I look at the various different data. I'm looking at the matches. I've got a lot of greens in there, etc. They've done everything looks good. And in the unmatched, let's see what's in there. Okay, it can't say it's green, it's good, it's 100% of the rule because of the fact that we don't have any values. Any manufacturers within our master file for this type of thing. Okay? All right. Now what I'm going to do is I finish this. I'm happy with the results that I produced. Obviously, if I was me in real life, I'd be going back and cleaning the stuff up before I'd even try and process. Okay, I'm going to finish and I'm going to publish it. And I say fine. Okay. Now to date, I have done nothing but create the knowledge base. I have done nothing else. It is all theory. All theory right now. There can be nothing. It's been created. Now, the question that the wiseacre asked me, or the astute, eagle-eyed viewer did, is where is all this stored? And the answer is that it is stored in DQS main. Okay, let me just bring up Server 2012, which I probably should have brought up before. Okay. And it's stored in this database here. Okay, we'll have a look at that in a second. Getting back into the data quality world, what we're going to do right now is we're going to create a new data quality project. And I'm going to call this project Warehouse Business Intelligence, all right? And you can put your own description in there. And it inherits the knowledge base that we just did, okay? And you can see your matching rules have to be here, and it's based upon this domain. And we're going to do only cleansing. Okay. We're going to take another table here. We're going to use the same database. All right. And we're going to use another table here. Okay. And there's more data. And in here, we're going to match the manufacturer. And we're going to go against our manufacturer domain, etc. And we're going to say next. And we're going to start the process to see what that new data looks like. Okay? What it's told us is that based upon, and here's the first kicker, here's the first kicker. The correct records there in this particular data, it's found that 10,749 records are correct. It corrected 620. Can you believe it? It's collected 620 records. There's no suggestions, and there's obviously no invalid. We'll talk about invalid in a couple of minutes' time. Okay, I'm going to click next. And over here are the records that it corrected. And here are the correct records. And there you go. There were obviously, in that particular case there, I didn't have any invalids, etc., because it's data that I just, gathered and knew that was in the master file. But the point is that you can see immediately is you can see what it's going to do. Now, these are correct. If you think it's incorrect, you can reject it. And vice versa, otherwise you just leave it as a proof because you wouldn't really want to change it because you know it's correct. In the corrected, this is what it corrected it to, and I'm just going to, I know that I've got to move this, you don't. It has been corrected, this particular things have been corrected, etc. This is a domain value, so it's just been corrected. In other words, it came in on the master file. These are some of the things that we normally corrected to the leading value, etc. And it's learned from past experiences that I have run. So the whole DQS database learns from what you're doing. Every time you run it, it gets smarter and smarter. And I've run this thing a couple of times. So everything is added to the data collection within that within the actual DQS main database. Okay. Now, what I'm doing over here is I'm looking at this particular thing here. It gives you a little bit of screen. It gives you a bit of an idea of what type of products you were dealing with, just as a final check. Okay. And I'm going to put it into the data. I'm going to export the data right now, and I'm going to export it into DQS staging. DQS staging data, and I'm going to call it Data Warehouse Business Intelligence, and I'm going to close it with excuse me, within the data cleansing info. I want to export it. Okay, it's been exported. All right. And I'm going to click Finish. And I'm out of here. All right. Now what I'm looking for is I come in here, I refresh, and I look at the tables in DQS staging data. And here it is. All right? Now remember one thing, and I think this is important. I just want you to remember this. The data came in from a SQL Server table that had nothing magic in it. It had absolutely nothing magic in it. It was just a piece of raw data. It was raw data that had come in, loaded by the nightly load, whatever way you want to look at it. I open up this file and I look at the first 1,000 records. Okay? I'm asking if you haven't paid attention for a while now, please pay attention because this is the kicker. You'll notice over here that there is a field at the end called report status, record status. Okay? I'm going to take this in this particular case and I'm going to put in a predicate. I'm going to say, if I can spell correctly, it's that over here, where the record status is equal to correct. And if I do a Control E, there you have all the data that was correct. Okay. Where are you, Simon? Where are you going with this? All right. This stuff from this staging table can be forwarded into the nightly loads and processed as correct. Now, I've added ED in there. Now I run this again. I got a whole pile of stuff here that is called corrected. Now, after we run this for a whole lot of times and we're happy and everybody's got that warm and fuzzy feeling, we can probably load this in. But at the present moment, you and I are just starting out and we want to understand why it's corrected. So, and this is, we're not going to look at this today, but I want you to imagine in your mind from 50 million feet that we use master data services, which I'm going to talk about at a later stage, if you guys are interested in it. We hook this up to the data steward or the business analyst. We hook them up, and this data is visible to them within master data services. And what they can do is go in and fix the fields that they want to have fixed. And master data services is extremely good at this particular thing, okay? But that's not for this time, and the security on that is phenomenal. I've got one financial implementation now in that, and they love it. The financial officer is over the moon about it, so that's great. Okay, you can see what's going on there, all right? So that gives you an idea of what's cutting there. Now what I want to do is I want to now jump into SSIS and show you how this can be implemented. Once we get everything running and once we're really all happy with what's going on, what we're going to do is we're going to put it into a nightly process load, all right? Now, what I did was I've written an article which will be published on SQL Shack in a couple of days' time, okay? You might want to catch it. I created for this thing a load project which I call SQL Shack Data Load. It's pretty well similar to what we've got right now. Okay, now to have a look at this, will I stop the telemarketer? I don't know if you guys got telemarketers, but we have them like by the plague. All right, I apologize to you. Moving into the data flow in here, you'll see that I've got a conditional split in here. Here is my incoming uncleansed data. I use a new control that we have, which is called the data cleansing tool. And inside here, it uses the algorithm. This is raw data, has nothing in it, no record status, no whatever it may be. It's got data coming in. The data cleansing control that comes in is put in but when you do the installation of DQS. It uses the manufacturer algorithm. Here you go. There's the mapping. The input column is manufacturer, etc., and everything else flows through. Okay? I put a conditional split over here. That the correct goes into here, the corrected goes into here, invalid records go into here, and new records go into here. What more could you want? It splits it. You can put the production stuff, the correct stuff, the great stuff, you can put it directly in, and what you can do is send invalid, corrected over to the business analyst and let them sort it out and pick it up the next night on the actual process. Now over here, what I've done is I've got an SQL task that basically speaking truncates the various different tables. Now you might say, well, do you really want to truncate them at the beginning? That's a matter of your business rules. Okay, this is just a demo. Under normal circumstances, I would not truncate them because if you've been in business for years, you know that it takes a lot of time for people to go and look at data, and you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. So what you might want to do is you'll be able to tell them to change the status to correct, and during your nightly process, you could go through those various different incorrect tables and only pull out the records that are correct and shoot them into production. Now, obviously, this goes on an ongoing basis at our particular location that we're doing, and we do a couple of processes during the course of the day. So I truncate the table, etc., and then I basically speaking then run the process. And this is run every night at midnight after close of business. So just to show you, give you a feel of what's going on, I'll start debugging. And if you go into the data flow, you can see how the records are going through. There were 11,369 rows that went in. It passed through everything. 10,097 were correct. It corrected 836 records. In my case, it found a couple of invalid records, and we could talk about that, but time is running a bit short. There's a facility to declare something invalid. Normally, I say if there's a slash in the name or the manufacturer is less than 3 characters, it's invalid, and you can make that up, those rules up as you go. All right? And there were even a couple of new records, no new records, etc., just invalid, corrected, or correct. Okay? So I think that that's personally very cool, and you can imagine yourself being able to run this every single evening on virgin data. On virgin data, running this every single night without having to worry about quality. And to me, this is important because I ask at the beginning of every single presentation, who has clean data? And there's obviously one idiot, sorry, I apologize, one person that needs to be educated that says we've got clean data. And I don't believe that, and neither do you. All right. Moving back on here, okay, I've shown you the SSIS. There's a typical example, all right? What I want to do is I want to talk about the takeaways. Data quality can be problematic, and the problem is when you have human intervention. We used to send a lot of our stuff offshore, and a lot of these countries, although, look, our language of working is in English, okay, and we just basically speaking, there are people that do not write English as well. So when they're copying data, or, you know, one of the things we have in our issues that we have at our place is people do screen scraping. And screen scraping often contains controlled characters of 10 and 13. And we really don't want these things in. Okay? DQS, like any mining model, will learn. For all intents and purposes, it's a mining model. Learn is the accent. DQS learns data patterns, and it can detect these data patterns, okay? And basically speaking, sometimes it can duplicate the data if you want, okay? And it can also detect data duplication. Human invention, this is the most important point that I want to make. Human intervention decreases as the models mature. So if you're prepared to work with it for about a month or two of nightly feeds during the day, sorry, you can basically speaking have this thing up and working with it, I would believe, within 60 to 90 days, because let's be honest, you as manufacturers or people that sell things or sell services only have a limited number of services that you're selling. So you can train this thing and you can see the benefits. Look, you saw some of the cribs that I had in there. At the beginning when I pulled up, it had correct spelling for Kellogg, the way I wanted it spelled. It learns. It picks up the data that it's already got in DQS name before you even start. And if it's needed, it's used. Okay. Better quality data reduces data processing. And this is important, especially with cubes, that in order to make the things efficient and effective. Effective in the sense that it's giving the user, the BA, the decision maker, the right answers, and efficient meaning that you don't have to do all that much processing to go on as you go on. Yes, with every update of data, you're going to want to update your cube. I mean, that you're not going to get away from. However, the point I'm trying to make is that you want to be able to see that when things aggregate up, they aggregate to the top level of Kellogg's and not 15 different spellings of Kellogg's. DQS knowledge bases can be used with SSIS, which is, to me, is an imperative thing. I was never fond of anything else that could not work with SSIS, because SSIS is the life of I'm talking about not you, me, and my business. I'm talking about you and me. Our businesses need SSIS to be able to do the nightly processing. I don't like those midnight calls. Output is correct. The output that's correct you can use. Problematic data can be sent to the data stewards. And I think this is important. You've got to get your data stewards, your business people involved with you, because I can promise you one thing. The moment, and you got to get them to take ownership of the data. Because if they don't take ownership of the data, you are losing. But I can promise you one thing, once I get these guys to take ownership of their own data, you'd be surprised how little junk data you get. Because they're so used to calling us up and saying we got bad data, sort it out. Now the point is they own the data, so they call themselves up. And I think that this is important, okay? All right. Less frustration from the end users. You're not going to have as much problem and many problems from the end users, etc. And the decision makers. And they love it because they don't have to call us and say the data's bad, okay? Because, folks, at the end of the day, it all boils down to a matter of dollars and cents, which basically speaking, and more importantly, is why all of us can definitely benefit from a dive into data quality services 2014. Amen. You people have, thanks very much. You've been a super audience. I really appreciate it. Once again, if you're interested in getting hold of me, you can get hold of me at steve.simon, S-T-E-V-E Simon, S-I-M-O-N, at sqlpass.org. Or don't forget my website, infogold, one word, infogold.usa.com. Or you can get hold of me through Jen, or you can get hold of me through the virtual chapter. I will put the zip package up online at infogoldusa.com. I have to do it that way. The package is extremely big and you can download it yourself. It's got the SSIS package in there, which you can go and have a look at. All the presentations and any reports that I've used here, you can see. I think it's definitely worth having a look at. Okay, and with that, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Hello, Steve. That was great. Thank you very, very much. I really enjoyed that session. And thank you very much for sharing the code and everything with us as well. And I hope the delegates will go off and play with the code and learn how it works. Because as I said earlier, if you don't have data quality, you don't have anything else, because everything really rests on it. We had a few questions. So the first was from Tim, who wanted to know if there's any real-time integration, for example, a plug-in to Dynamic CRM to prompt the data entry person for possible matches.
Sorry, will you repeat that? Could you repeat?
Sure.
The nickel version.
They wondered if there's any real-time integration, so that you could, for example, have a plug-in to Dynamic CRM to prompt the data entry person for possible matches of a duplicate account or contact.
All right, here's what I would do is, if they're looking for particular matches, what I would do is you can basically speaking, create yourself a report to through SSRS or through SharePoint, whatever way you want to do it, to be able to pull them out. I don't know if I'm answering the question, but you have full access to those things to pull the matches, etc., so that they can create a report to be able to go and pull the stuff. Second of all, you can always get it extracted to a Access database, or most business people want to use sorry, not Access, Excel. You can get extracts to Excel. I don't know if I'm answering the question. The front end, I haven't worked with Microsoft Dynamics at all, so I really am not in a qualified position to pass that comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not a CRM person either, but Tim has come back to say thank you. So, and I hope that answers the question. We just had two more questions. One is from Melissa, who's asked if, is it correct to say that the DQS staging database is there for us to use as we see fit, i.e. none of the UIs use it directly?
Yes. If you're licensed under Business Intelligence or Enterprise Version, there's no extra license required. It's there. Use it.
Oh, good. Thank you. And then there's one last question, which I'm not sure if I'm wording it properly, but Melissa again has asked, is it correct that once things are running programmatically through SSIS, you don't have a need for the DQS project anymore?
No, you need that project. The project, because basically speaking, what it's doing is you're going to, what happens, okay, let me rephrase. Okay. Yes, you want to keep it. Why do you want to keep it? At the beginning, the thing that we did at the beginning, if you ever want to build upon it, you're going to have to build upon that first project that we did. Whereas the model that we did build on the second stage, which actually does the cleaning, is used for that particular model. So if you have no intentions of building upon it and making more things, you don't need the project. But then again, they're all linked in, and I never erase them.
That's great, thank you. Well, just that was the last question actually. We've had a lot of people saying thank you and thanks for a great session. So I just wanted to pass on the thanks from the people who've put that in the chat window. So thank you very much. And with that, the session draws to a close. And I want to say thank you very much for myself, Stephen, for doing that for us. And with that, it just...
Sorry, if I can get one last thing in there, please,
yeah,
people,
sure.
If you do want to have any questions, do contact me. Jen's got my email address. Once again, steve.simon@sqlpass.org. I love answering any questions, and I won't feel at all offended. As a matter of fact, I'll be very happy. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you pick it up because I think it's a phenomenal tool. Sorry, Jen.
No, not at all. That's fine. Thank you so much for your help. And thank you also for what you do for the community as well. I know I met you earlier last year in Amsterdam. And it was really good to see you there. And thank you for all your support. And we've had a slew of more people saying thank you, which is really nice. So
thanks a lot. Thanks to everybody for attending. Really, you were a great crowd.
Yeah, thank you. And with that, it just leaves us to say good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever you are in the world. And thank you so much for your time. So thank you and goodbye. Bye.